We already know Samsung is working on a flexible phone, and we know they're not alone, but here at CES 2019, we got to try something just a little more ambitious than that. We're here with Royole, and they have made their own flexible flagship smartphone device that you can actually buy right now if you live in China, or if you're willing to shell out for a developer version and are willing to wait for a few weeks for it to show up. So let's take a closer look. Right off the bat, I have to be candid. I did not expect much out of this device. It is mostly because I don't know who Royole is. That said, they've been around for a little bit. We saw them actually at CES a few years ago where they built a personal cinema headset that started to use some of their flexible display technology, but that's really what it's all about. This company has been working on cracking the flexible screen formula since 2012, and after using the Royole Flex Pai, as it's known, that work seems to have paid off. We need to start with the basics. There's a Snapdragon 855 chipset inside with either 6 or 8 gigabytes of RAM. Storage options start at 128 gigabytes, and there's a dual camera here, which frankly isn't very good. To put it mildly, the experience of unfolding a smartphone and getting a nearly 8-inch diagonal screen is kind of magical. It's an experience I didn't expect to have at CES, and more than that, I didn't expect to like it as much as I did. Granted, this is a little bit weird for a few reasons. Google has said that it's working to build support for foldables into Android itself, but that didn't exist by the time Royole built this phone, so all of their specific software customizations are just built on top of Android 9.0 Pie. This is very much their own thing, and to their credit, it actually runs really well. There's a moment when you just slightly bend the display and start to see app icons bouncing back and forth between them, where you realize this actually feels remarkably polished. That's pretty big, especially when you consider Royole has worked on flexible screens. They're not really known at all for their software talent, but this is a version of Android that feels remarkably polished despite working in a form factor that is still completely brand new. Even performance worked out relatively well. We threw a couple games on this thing, and everything seemed to run without a hitch. I think software compatibility is going to be a problem for a device like this, especially since they just did all of this stuff by themselves. There are developer units out there, so there are software makers and app developers trying to figure out how to make their apps work on a device like this. But when Google inevitably announces their full toolset for foldable devices, we're going to have to see if any of the work that was done to make apps work on the FlexPai is transferable to these new foldable devices. It doesn't make sense for an app developer to put a ton of effort into one device when it could maybe build stuff for all foldables in the future. I can't stress this enough though, using the FlexPai as of right now is kind of weird. The cameras are really not particularly good, especially when you consider the software on the device that we tried took every landscape photo that we had and only displayed them as vertical. Beyond that, it's just kind of confusing because I, like you probably, have never used a foldable phone before. So there's a little cognitive dissonance between what you might expect this phone to do and the way it actually behaves. I tried to look at photos on one side of the screen and turn it over, expecting that part of the screen to be mirrored to the version I was looking at right then. It was just something else entirely. I'm really not sure what drove Royole to make the specific interface decisions it made here, but hopefully after using a device like this more, it becomes second nature. We'll have to see though. We spoke to Royole's CEO and he told us that once the company had made the decision to become a player in the smartphone space, there's no turning back. Obviously, there's work that needs to be done here. There's polish that needs to be applied. There are rough edges that need to be sanded down. But for a first step, this is really impressive stuff, and I can't wait to see what these guys work on next. So stay tuned for more from Royole and CES 2019 at Engadget.com.